This is so unnecessary. It's absurd. Final Fantasy XI is an old game. This shouldn't come as a surprise to any fan, but it was being developed since, I think, before 2000. It came out in 2002 in Japan, I believe, and America got its hands on it a little while later. It was developed originally for the PS2 and essentially ported to PC at the same time. I'm saying a lot of stuff without being 100% confident of that, but I'm pretty sure that was how it all went down. There was a lot of PS2 specific technologies that were never really perfectly replicated. To be honest, I'm glad it's raining because weather is one of them. The weather effects were unique on the PlayStation 2 and, in my opinion, far more beautiful, and unfortunately kind of lost forever. But that's not even what we're talking about. I bring all that up just to say the game is old. It was developed back when 4x3 televisions were predominantly what was available and used, and for many years I myself played on a 4x3 television screen. It was a long time before I even saw anything close to 16:9 on Final Fantasy XI. The fact that it supports it at all is frankly a miracle, and luckily it does. We can go in here, one of these menus, miscellaneous 2. You can actually change the background aspect ratio. By the way, I have forgotten about this very rarely. Occasionally I do forget that this setting is here. The second I heard about ultra-wide monitors, my first thought was, can Final Fantasy XI run that way? Because that's usually my thought for a lot of cool new tech. When I heard about VR, I was like, how do we play Final Fantasy XI in VR? Speaking of which, I did sort of check that out. If you've never seen it, I'll link the video in the description below. Definitely watch the Final Fantasy XI in VR experience. It brought tears to my eyes, which is unfortunate because I had the VR mask on and I think I might have screwed something up. Anyways, I love playing Final Fantasy XI in cool, new, immersive ways. And the idea of playing with an ultra-wide setup, when I first even got close to this, I was using a 3-monitor setup back when I first started PC gaming. To be honest, I thought it sounded like the coolest thing ever, and I got some racing games and the 3-monitor setup, and it was a blast. But Final Fantasy XI is old, and you can't adjust stuff, and ever since then, I've always wished that this worked. I recently found out after upgrading my monitor to the monitor that I have now, which is a 32:9. It's two 16:9 ratio monitors essentially squashed together into one gigantic panel, and I love it. But I found out there is an add-on for Ashita that automatically changes the aspect ratio of the background resolution rendering of Final Fantasy XI, because this has always been the biggest hurdle. They only support certain aspect ratios, 16:9, 16:10, 15:9, which is an interesting one. I'd be curious if anybody has a 15:9 monitor where that was prevalent. 5:4, I think, and 4:3. I don't know why I'm going through this. I'm like guessing. Yeah, 5:4 is the maximum ratio, and that's it. These have always been the options for what you could render Final Fantasy XI at, but there is an add-on now, and apparently there was for Windows as well, where you can manually change the aspect ratio. So I had to boot it up, and I'm gonna give you the full review. And for those of you that are like, I hopped into this video because I thought there was gonna be a review of Final Fantasy XI's ultra-wide experience. There is. I'm sorry. I got excited talking about the history of how we got here. I'm so excited to see this even working at all, just for the little glimpse of what it would be like to view Vana'diel this way. Just a little bit more, because for anybody that's never experienced it, ultra-wide has always been and forever will be about immersion. There's more screen real estate. You're closer to the natural reality of your peripheral vision still seeing the game world. Everyone always says like, wait, but I don't want to look over to the sides to like have to see stuff. You don't, for the most part. That's not really what it's there for. It's mostly so that in your peripheral you can see movement, color, shapes. It just draws you in more because you feel a little bit more like you're in that world. I love it for gaming. It's so much fun. And Final Fantasy XI is one of the most immersive games I've ever played in terms of like an online multiplayer experience that draws me into a new world of Vana'diel. And I always wanted to play it in ultra-wide, but I didn't think it was possible. I thought the technical limitations, PS2 limitations, damn you, had held the game back for far too long, and we never see it. But with new add-ons and plugins, we have finally gotten there, and you can play it this way. Now, having said that, here comes the review part. I don't know if I will. It is pretty cool. It's pretty cool. But there are a couple things that make me question its viability. One of the big struggles of Ultrawide has always been the heads-up display for any game, and different games handle this differently, and unfortunately Final Fantasy XI is one of those games where there's not a lot you can manually adjust. Party and character information is always going to be in the far bottom right as far as I know. If there are add-ons or plugins that you can download to move that around, I'd love to hear about them. What I believe is you may be able to, through third-party add-on, replicate that same information somewhere else on screen, but that element will still be there. Let me know if I'm wrong about that, but I think that's the best we can do. I don't think we can erase the HUD from Final Fantasy XI or move it at all. Same thing with the chat windows. They are essentially, you know, down where they are. We actually have more options with that than we've ever had by being able to split the chat windows, put them vertically stacked or horizontally stacked. The buffs are always going to start what didn't feel like the upper left, but I guess it is the upper left. Let's throw on some shell and protect real quick just to... I mean, that's hysterical. Like, I wouldn't have considered that to be in an upper left place on a screen, but in a super ultra wide or an ultra wide experience, it's very far over there. Anyways, point is, keeping an eye on buffs is a little bit harder in this kind of setup because it's kind of far away. Same thing with, well, I guess that's kind of it. Those are really the HUD elements that we have to deal with. You may have noticed that I've got names off, and this is the big problem. And this is not unfixable. It's just frustration right now. The text on screen and the icons for link shells, link pearls, and I'm assuming party seek. Let's see that real quick. Hang on. Yeah. All tie back to the aspect ratio that you're using in game. And I guess the aspect add-on, it sort of corrects that, but all it's doing is it's stretching the text to fit the new screen. This is fixable. We've already had icon and font DAT mods. You can totally swap those out for new fonts and icons. I've actually done it with the fonts. Definitely check out Ash and Bub's font add-on, by the way. It's fantastic. But so we could totally change this. I think all we'd have to do is kind of like decrease the overall size of the font. Somebody tell me, I can't tell now that I'm like staring at this and I haven't seen it shrunk a moment ago. I don't think that the font is italicized anymore. I think that's the normal font. It's just wide. Or is it just bigger? Is it just stretched in all directions? Point being, I think we just have to shrink the font. I think if you do a higher res, but like smaller, maybe half the size on both horizontal and vertical space of the font and the icons, I think it'd be fine. I've looked, it doesn't exist out there right now. There aren't a huge number of people that are curious about the ultra-wide Final Fantasy XI experience. I did see a post from, I think it was like 2017 or 18, where somebody did change the seek icon just to mess with it and see if it was possible for a standard ultra-wide of like 21:9, and it did work. So it's possible. You could fix this. But right now, as far as I know, there are no DAT mod fonts out there that are appropriate for this level of ultra-wide. So that would be something that I'd probably have to fix, because the font is huge. And it's kind of distracting. The other issue, if we're gonna talk about it, the fisheye effect of Final Fantasy XI is pretty significant. Final Fantasy XI has always had a bit of a fisheye effect. I mean, you can even tell here. That, let's look at Tomasp. That right there is about a 16:9. I guess we'll see if I fix this. The edge of a 16:9 monitor, ish. You can already tell that NPC kind of looks like it's drawing away. It's sort of like distorted a little bit to give you that effect of like, oh, it's a peripheral vision, you know, something in your peripheral, and it's sort of distorted because of the way eyeballs work. A lot of games do this to create a more realistic effect of how the world should look to you, for better or worse. Now on a 32:9, you can tell by the edge of the 32:9, they're like distorted beyond all recognition. Like, that character has gone nuts. Look, it's like 3 times as wide, which isn't a huge deal. You can't adjust the field of view in Final Fantasy XI, at least to my knowledge. So I can't tweak how intense that fisheye effect is. They'll always look that wild on the outside, which is okay. It's not super distracting. Like I said, you're not really looking over there anyway. It's more of a peripheral thing, except that because your chat windows are forever and always over there, you will be glancing over there more than in other games, I guess. And same thing with, like, you know, if you have to keep an eye on what buffs or debuffs you have currently. You're looking at the edges of the screen more so than you might in games that you could move that HUD or they're not as HUD focused. But I will say, I mean, just being able to experience and see Final Fantasy XI this way, even if it's mostly just for fun running around, is awesome. If you happen to have an ultra-wide monitor or a super ultra-wide monitor, definitely boot it up. Download the Ashta aspect add-on load aspect. It does it all for you. It's super easy, and it's pretty cool. It is a shame Final Fantasy XI is always getting in its own way by being such an old game, and there's only so much we can tweak or adjust. And when you start to do this kind of crazy stuff, that, to be honest, there are plenty of modern games that don't really truly naturally support 32:9 or even 21:9 monitors. It's a struggle people go through all the time. So to see that Final Fantasy XI can support it at all is a huge win. But I want to know your thoughts. Have you ever been drawn in by the concept of ultra-wide gaming? Would you play Final Fantasy XI this way, or is this more of just like a cool thing that you check out once and then go back to 16:9? I will say this monitor is really awesome for playing Final Fantasy XI regardless of whether or not you play it this way, because I can have Final Fantasy XI as a whole side of the monitor, and then the other side be, you know, guides and everything that we have to have up while we play this game, because it's ridiculous. I just had to share it. As soon as I booted this up, I'm like, I have to record this and put it on YouTube. I have to show everybody what this looks like. And I don't think it's gonna do it justice, because it'll be all shrunken on your screen, and you have to picture, you know, full-sized monitor in front of you, but also just wider. If you're interested, I could upload a, you know, like a 5-minute thing of just gameplay in the ultra-wide experience if you have an ultra-wide monitor to just like maximize on. Let me know if that's something you'd like to see. This would be cool for notorious monster hunting. You're just like, I spotted him! There he is! He's over there! Anyways, let me know your thoughts, guys, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace. Mom, I'm on candid camera! This is amazing! It's Odin! It's officially Odin! Where are my emotes? I did all sorts of fun stuff. How delayed is it? Oh, there's the wave. Oh my God, it takes forever.